What's going on out there, world? It's your man, Will Lyons, Baldwin Sports and Music Division. I'm rocking with my special guest today, Drumwork's own, one of Buffalo's finest, Jae Skeese. What's going on, brother?
Hello, man. How you feeling, bro? Thanks for having me on here.
Oh, it's a pleasure, man. Big fan of your work and just, really interested to, I was blessed to be able to, give your album a listen. I feel like the world is really about to be put on to, you and your sound. You know what I mean? Like, I know you had some really standout features, some great choruses, but like, it's your time for your victory lap.
For sure, King. I appreciate that, man. I'm ready for the world to hear me, man. Hear my story and what I bring to the table. I've been grinding for this moment for a long time, so it's a dope moment for sure.
Absolutely. So one of the things I wanted to ask you, man, is you talking about the grind, right? So in one of the songs I heard you saying that you signed during the pandemic. Can you kind of like just break down like what the process leading into that? Because I know you've been rapping for a while, but I know I discovered you on I believe it was God Don't Make Mistakes. So little like I know clearly based on your bars, man, you've been at it for a minute, you know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, man, I've been making music since I was about 12 years old, but really doing it serious since I was about 2021. Really putting in the work, you know what I mean, consistently. But yeah, during the pandemic, that happened, March 2020. I was working like a regular 9 to 5 job, and still, that was like to support myself and my daughter and my dream. And I got laid off from work, and like a lot of people did. And so I was at home just grinding, writing different verses, and just putting in the work, man. I paint as well, so I was working on different paintings and things like that. And it was one random day, I got hit up by my job. This was a few months later in June, and they were asking us to come back to work, because really I didn't get laid off, I got furloughed. That's what it was. And this was right after George Floyd happened. And my store, I was working at a sneaker store, and the store it got ran down on, man. Everybody ran in there, tried to steal all the sneakers in the store. It was crazy. And we went back to work, and when we went back to work, we were working on getting the store open. It wasn't even open yet, so we were cleaning up the store and things like that. And it was just a lot of things at that time. I think with the company I work for, it just felt like things that were going on and the way that they were handling like the whole situation. It was some of the things I just didn't agree with, you know what I mean? Just as a man, as a person, as a human being. And so, it was one day, we opened up the store, and, I just wasn't feeling it. So I went home that day, and I was just like, man, maybe it's just time for me to just move on. Cause I had been working there for like 9 years. And, I ended up moving on from that position I held there. And that was on a Friday. And then, that following Sunday, like literally 2 days later, is when Conway had reached out to me. He's like, yo, like, you wanted to, dopest MCs that I know here in the town. I'm starting up this label. Like, what do you think about, signing with me? And, that was what kind of happened, as far as like me getting signed. And then from there, it was just a whole process of me getting signed, because I didn't sign for another almost 7-8 months. So, but, I was just grinding from that time, on pretty much.
Word. That's a dope story. Since you brought up Conway, I mean, obviously, I'm a big fan of his as well. Can you tell me what that relationship dynamic is like? Obviously you two are artists, but I saw he's an executive producer, you know what I'm saying, on this project. And I'm just wondering what that's like, the creative process when you have one of the illest, one of the other illest on the planet, you know what I'm saying, kind of critiquing the work.
Yeah, man, I think it's dope, man, because, I was a fan first to Conway. So, I have a great respect for what he brings to the table just as an artist, period. So I think one thing that was real evident from the jump, from like our first time even being in the studio, is that Conway respected my pen and my artistry. And so he gave me a lot of freedom when it came to, selecting beats and, the directions of the songs, and even just the direction of the album, period. He gave me a lot of freedom, and it was almost like, pretty much you build this project because you've been doing this for a long time. You know what I mean? Like, you're your own artist, and, we'll go back and we'll listen to it, and, I'll tell you what I like and what I don't like, what I think can be tweaked, and kind of, all those different things. And, I sat down. This was because I've been working on this album since 2020. So I sat down with Conway. It was towards the end of 2020, I believe. And the album like wasn't finished as it is now. It was like a lot of it was done at the end of 2020, early 2021. And we sat down and we listened to what I had already. And he was just like, yo, he was blown away. Like, yo, this is a classic. Like, I can't wait to drop this. And, you know, as time went on, time progressed, and, you know, we were waiting, you know, for some things to happen so that we could put the album out. I made some changes to the album, just a few different song changes and things like that. And I think it really enhanced the listening experience. I feel like it went from being like, you know, maybe a 9 out of 10 to like a 12 out of 10. I ain't gonna lie. You know what I'm saying? And, you know, Khan was a big part of that. You know what I mean? Just, you know, going back and listening to the album and, you know, really telling me like, yo, I like this song. I really like this joint. And then in between that time, I'm creating newer songs and newer, you know, telling newer stories and just adding those different songs. You know what I mean? So Khan was a big part of the process, but he also gave me a lot of creative freedom to really tell my story.
Word. And that was evident, you know, like just listening through. You know, obviously I didn't know you were recording it, you know, working on it since 2020, but the amount of time and care you put into it is definitely showing for sure. Now I wanted to, you know, ask you a little bit about life, and you could tell me if I got it right. So the thought process behind Abolish Uncertainty, the title really caught me, right? So I wanted to get more into that.
Yeah, for sure. You said you want to get into the title?
Yeah, cause so it'll lead into the follow-on question, but yeah, could you like let me know what went into you selecting that title?
Oh yeah. So basically, when I was thinking about what to call the album, just being in the moment that I was in, you know, being in the studio with Khan and you know, knowing who Conway is and knowing the opportunity that he was bringing to me. You know, growing up in Buffalo, there's not a lot of opportunities to do what, you know, Griselda has done, to do the things that I've done. You know what I mean? Just because it's a small market, the entertainment industry isn't necessarily coming to Buffalo and looking for talent or looking for, you know, the next big thing. And so that was always in the back of my mind, you know what I mean? Because I've been doing this for so long, and I've been wanting to do it for so long. But you know, you go so long with grinding and working hard and traveling, doing shows and putting money into you know what you're trying to do, and you don't see the results that you want. So it's a degree of uncertainty that can kind of grow in the back of your mind. I was watching something the other day, and they said to do the things that like I'm doing and you know other creatives do, artists do. You almost got to be to a certain level. You got to be like delusional. You know what I mean? Because you got to believe it. So you got to believe in it so much, and you know other people, they won't even see your vision. You know what I mean? And that's what it was like with this whole music thing. I was like, it got to a point where I almost was like, yo, I'm not sure if this is ever going to really pan out. And when that happened, I kind of fell back from music for a little bit. Like it wasn't, you know, my top priority. And again, like, you know, just being in the studio with Conway, like I said, almost like that first session, we were in the studio for like a week together. And it was just kind of like, man, like, you know, when you put yourself in that mindset of being uncertain about what your future is or what's going to happen, you can kind of become a slave to your own mind, because now those thoughts are just cycling. And again, it's like I was thinking about it, I'm like, I'm kind of being a slave to my own mind almost, you know what I mean? And so what I wanted to do with this project was I wanted to take this opportunity and just break those chains, you know what I mean? So that's where the word abolish came from, because I was thinking about like being a slave to your own mind, being a slave, and you know, you're abolishing that, and then just abolishing the uncertainties that you may have about yourself.
That's awesome, man. You know, I listen to a lot of music, been reviewing a lot of music, but it's not too many times that a title, you know, really kind of hits in my mind where it's like, man, you know, I really wonder, you know, where that came from. So I think that's dope. The follow on, you know, hearing you talk about abolishing uncertainties, right? The limited opportunities, you know, where you're from, even just, you know, trying to make it as a rapper, right? So I heard you speaking about, you know, being tongue tied and also having a problematic birth. You know, do you feel like that gives you, you know, an additional push when you you know, when you write and when you in the studio, just to, you know, go that much harder?
Yeah, 100%, man. Because you know, for a long time, there's a lot of people who doubted me. I remember when I put out my first mixtape, there was like a small publication here in Buffalo. You know, they were doing their thing and doing write-ups and things like that. And I put up my very first mixtape, man, and it was going crazy here in the town. And again, it's like those opportunities don't really come here in Buffalo. You know what I'm saying? For people to do their thing, and they kind of shit on me. You know what I mean? They put it out that I couldn't rap and all this other stuff, and you know, just all the things that I've had to overcome in my life. Like in between this time of you know, me putting together this album, like my best friend growing up from the time I was 11 passed away. You know what I'm saying? So all that kind of plays a part into you know, my story. And you know, like you said, like, you know, the whole thing with like my birth and being tongue tied. I take all those things and I just, you know what I mean? I try and use them as fuel to, you know, just be the best that I can be, you know what I mean? And just tell my story, because I know it's a million other people out there, more than that. It's millions of people who can, you know, my story will resonate with them, and, you know, they can feel that, you know what I'm saying? And it don't matter if, and I said it on the one record, it don't matter if you going to medical school, you know what I'm saying? Like whatever you're doing, it's always going to be some type of like obstacles in your way. You know what I mean? You just got to kind of move them out your way. People ain't going to believe in you, whatever. Like it don't matter. Like you just keep focused on what you're trying to do, and you'll do, you know what I mean? Like you'll do your thing. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely. You know, and first off, I do want to, you know, extend sincere condolences, you know, hearing about your friend, man. But the I feel like it is very important, you know, the transparency that you have in your music, right? Because you never know who you could be an inspiration to, man. So definitely, you know, keep that going.
Sure.
My next question, man. So, you know, obviously, you know, you the star, man. You know, I'm from Jersey, right? So to give you a little context on where this question comes from, South Jersey, like 10 minutes from Philly, right? So listening to the album, you know, it was a pleasant surprise for me to hear the state property Legend Freeway, man. Please let me know how this collab came about.
Yo, so I was in the studio. It was one day we were here in Buffalo actually, and Free and Beans, they actually pulled up. They had a show here in Buffalo. And I'm in the studio, and Khan was supposed to pull up to the studio as well this same night. And because Khan was pulling up, you know, they wanted to meet up with Conway. And so, because this was actually around the same time, Beans recorded Lock Low, his verse on Lock Low from God Don't Make Mistakes. And so, you know, they pull up, and, you know, we was kicking it or whatever. And my man, DJ Coles, he was like, yo, just play your album. Like, they walked out the room. He was like, yo, turn your album on. I was like, all right, bet. So I turned my album on, and Free came back in the room. And at the time, I think that record was like track 4 or something like that. And he's sitting over in the corner, and from the time it came on, like, you know, the flow I'm using on there, I just see Free like rocking crazy with it. He's like going back and forth. I'm like, yo, I'm sitting there in my head. And one thing that Conway taught me from the jump, like from our first session, he was like, yo, he told me a story about Benny and how he got the Who I Am verse from Tana Talk 3 with Race to 5'9". And he was like, yo, anytime like you in the studio, like you gotta take advantage of that opportunity with whoever it is. So he was like, yo, whatever you're doing, like just always be ready. So if you see somebody, whatever, like if you see somebody working on the track, shit, pen you up a verse, you know what I'm saying? And just be ready. And so I seen Free doing his thing. He was just like bopping crazy. I'm like, yo, song goes off. I'm like, yo, it's room for you on that joint if you want to jump on the record. He was like, yo, what? I'm like, yo, it's room for you on that joint. Like, I saw how you was, you know what I mean, rocking with it. You know what I mean? And Free is one of my biggest inspirations flow-wise. You know what I mean? Like, my flow is kind of off kilter at times. I got that from Free. So he's like, yo, play it again. So we play it again. He was like, shit, load it up. I'm like, shit, bet. So, you know what I mean? We loaded up the record, man. He sat there. He didn't even write the verse down. He just went off the top. You know what I'm saying? So the record came together so dope, man. Like, that's one of the most hype records I think I've ever made. I'm just excited for people to hear it, man. Shout out to Freeway. He killed that joint too.
Absolutely. You know, that's definitely a standout, man. And, you know, I'm glad you brought up Lock Low too, because I thought it was just super dope, you know, being a big State Prop fan myself, you know, seeing those living legends, you know, continuing to work and get their flowers while they're here.
For sure, man. They're both like highly respected MCs, man. In my book, they're both legends. You know what I'm saying? Like nobody can really top like Freeway's first album. Like that album was insane. You know what I mean? 20 years this year, which is crazy.
Absolutely.
You know, I remember the first time I heard Free on 1-900 Hustler. You know, his flow was so different. That's just what made him stand out to me. And he was just super hungry. So, You know, he's again just a living legend, man. And just to have him on my album is like, man, it's like a blessing for real.
Definitely, man. You know, now like after hearing it, it's not like I couldn't, you know, sometimes like in your mind, your imagination, you're like, man, this person would fit on this song. I can't see anybody else on that with you besides Free.
Yeah, that's a fact. Cause when you know, when he heard the record was already done. Cause I didn't have any plans on putting anybody else on it. So, you know, it was like just a blessing, man. I came straight from God. You know what I mean?
Absolutely, man. So the next question, man. So, you know, I see you a big history buff, you know what I mean? Like I like to pride myself, you know, with history when it comes to sports, music, right? So especially in hip hop. I'm a huge fan of storytellers, right? So can you give me the breakdown on one of my favorite tracks for sure off the album, man, Burner Phone. You know, I personally feel like this is gonna be, at least for me, it's already on the list of like, you know, one of the dopest like storytelling tracks and one of the more different tracks I've heard.
Yeah, it was you know, it's crazy. So that was actually the second record that I made in that first session I was telling you about with Khan. So I was in a studio and you know, I had the idea already for the record because one of my favorite records is Nas I Gave You Power.
Mm-hmm.
I was, you know, I wanted to do something where it was so different and just so like nostalgic and just super like, yo, how did you even think to do that? You know what I mean? Because those are like my favorite records. Like Lupe Fiasco has one called Twilight Zone. I don't know if you've ever heard that, where he personified all these different things that we see in the hood, 40-ounce bottles and Dutches and Air Force Ones. He personified everything. And I know that he was probably inspired by I Gave You Power as well. I just feel like that's like, it's just a different level of writing. You know what I mean? And I started off before I was rapping. I was a shorty. I was probably 7, 8 years old. I used to write short stories. And so I've always been super intrigued by like, you know, someone who has like that higher, like just higher writing capability. You know what I mean? And I've always considered myself to be one of those people. And so again, I wanted to make a record where it just kind of etches my name in that, like you said, like this is one of the most different records, something that nobody else has ever done. And I was sitting there and, you know, I'm in the studio with Conway and I'm not signed at this point. I don't know how much of my music he's heard. I'm just trying to impress him. So you know, I get the beat and, you know, I'm listening to the beat and I'm like, yo, this will fit perfect with this. Like, this will be crazy. And so I literally sat there. I wrote that whole shit, like the whole thing. I had the idea, but I had to write all the lyrics out and I recorded it. And I'll never forget it. After I was done, he came in the studio. Conway came in the studio a little later and he was listening to it. He was like, yo, you wrote this like right now, like just now? I'm like, hell yeah, I wrote this like just now. Like, you sat here, you know what I mean? You saw me right. I wrote that just now. And so like that was what it was. It was just like, I felt like that session, that first week session that we had in New York, it felt like what do you call it? Like basic training or something like that. And I felt like what's his name for Full Metal Jacket? Khan was the general. And
Yeah.
I'm like Private Powell. I'm trying to figure it out. And so by the end of the joint, you know, I'm a fully developed soldier. You know what I'm saying? I just had to prove that to him.
Absolutely. Well, listen, man, you proved it to him, man. You definitely, you know, proved it to me, man. That's a classic. You know, if I had to introduce somebody to you, you know what I'm saying? Like, and I only had one song to do it, that would be it right now.
Man, that's crazy. Salute, man. Salute.
So, you know, going back a little bit in our conversation, I know you said Khan pretty much gave you full creative control. I wanted to just get a little bit get into the production of the album because one of the things I could appreciate, you know, and I'm sure as you well know, man, like a lot of projects right now, you know, a lot of production sounds very similar, you know, but in this project, every track, you know, is its own experience, right? And it builds and it builds. And you have like really something I feel like for everybody, you know, as a hip hop fan. But one of the ones that really stood out just from the production side was One of One with a jazz influence, right? So What was, was there anything in particular overall you were looking for when you were like searching for beats? And then can we expect more tracks like 101?
I don't think I was really looking for a particular sound. Now, if you go back in my discography, one of my guys that I work with real closely, one of my best friends, Mitch Arizona, he used to go by Kenny B as well. So if you go way back into my early discography, you'll see Kenny B, and then more recently you'll see Mitch Arizona. Um, we always connected on like that jazzy sample sound. That was just always a part of what I did. A lot of people know me for that sound, and a lot of people now they might say that I kind of changed up a little bit, just because I'm rapping over like some stuff that you might hear is a little bit more hard. But I've always been a big fan of like that more jazzy kind of sound. And so I wasn't looking for a particular sound. What I'm big on, like me as an artist, period, I don't like to be stuck in a box. I like to be if I like a beat, if I like a sound, I'm a create to it. You know what I mean? That's just kind of how I flow. And when the homie Jackal Beats sent me that joint, we had connected on my prior project, Iroquois Pliskin. He did Ekin 2. And really liked what he did on that. It was a similar sample to something I heard from Isaiah Rashad. And I really liked that sample. And when he sent me the joint for 101, it just kind of like, as soon as I heard it, it was like, yo, nah, this is ill. So it wasn't that I was looking for a sound or anything. I just really, really liked the sound of the beat. You know what I mean? It sounded different. And I think with some of the records that I do, I want to sound different. You know what I mean? I don't want to fit in, because with Jae Skeese, it's like, if you're a fan of Jae Skeese, you like Jae Skeese for what he stands for lyrically, but also just the way that my music sounds. You know what I mean? I don't want to sound like everybody else. You know what I mean? Like Buffalo has, with the mark that Griselda has made in the game, they're known for a certain sound, and that's great. Don't get me wrong, but I want to exist in my own lane, and part of that is just having my own sound as well, but not a sound that you really know me for, because I don't want to be stuck in a box. But at the same time, it's just different from what everything else that you hear.
Right. And it's funny, man, because I know you and I we are going back and forth, like on Twitter and everything. And one of the things you had told me was you wanted to, really separate yourself and establish your own sound, and I think based on what I heard from the album, and what I've heard from you, like some of your previous mixtapes, like what you did with Big Ghost and Iroquois Pliskin, you've done a good job of staying true to that, but also, evolving the sound, man. So, salutes to that, because I'm sure it has to be incredibly tough, to continue innovating.
Yeah, no doubt, man. Thank you, man. Salute.
The next question I have for you, man. Now, this is one I've been dying to ask, man, because being a fan of you and your work, one of the things that stands out to me, right, the love of sneakers and Metal Gear influence, right? You know, how do you feel like that separates you as an artist? Because the Ekin trilogy, man, and the Revolver Ocelot theme, I just feel like that is something in itself, like I've never come across anybody with that. You had the Mafia movie samples and things like that, but you really, like, I felt like found your signature.
Yeah, I think like the biggest thing for me was this, like, right. So when I was coming up and I was paying attention to like Griselda in the way that Wes and Conway and Benny, the way that they did their thing and made their name in the game, they attached themselves to the things that they liked. You know what I mean? They attached themselves to wrestling. That was like the biggest thing. And then the merch, like with the religious characters, religion inspired characters, I should say, with like, on Fly God, what he's wearing, the crown of thorns, and I forget what the other one is called, the Alchemist joint. Alchemist produced everything on there. Don't Get Scared Now. It's carrying the Bible, and I think it's a gun, or maybe it's a bottle or something like that. But I was just paying attention to what they were doing as far as using those symbols and using, those things to kind of drive what they had going on. And then I'm watching like El Camino and what he's doing, and it's kind of similar. You know what I mean? So I said, okay, how can I find my niche? Like, what can I do? And so, like I was telling you earlier, I worked in sneakers for, almost 12, 13 years. You know what I mean? I've always been a big sneakerhead, because growing up, I never had kicks. So when I was old enough to get my own sneakers and buy my own sneakers, that was all I wanted to do. You know what I mean? Like, and I was going for everything. You know what I'm saying? And so the other part of it was I didn't particularly want to rap about things that I didn't do or things that I didn't really rock with. Like, you heard the album, so you know, my dad, he had, you know, drug issues and shit. And so I never really wanted to fuck with drugs like that in that type of sense. So I didn't want to rap about it either. And so I said, well, yo, it's a million rappers rapping about how they flipping bricks and doing all this other shit. Why can't I talk about sneakers like how these rappers talk about bricks? Like, sneakers are already a big part of the culture. And, you know, shit, nobody else is doing it. Like, you had Wale, you had, you know, Currency, you got what's my man, Stolly, you know what I'm saying? Like, they talk that sneaker shit, but nobody has done it and done it where it's all types of metaphors and you name it, all types of kicks. I'm consider myself, I'm the Pusha T of sneakers, like, to his cocaine. You feel me? Like,
Right.
that's what I'm known for, you know what I mean? And so that was that, you know what I mean? I figured, okay, why can't I do that? And then the Metal Gear Solid thing came. So that was like my favorite game when I was like 12, 13 years old. And in the first game, early in the game, you get introduced to Revolver Ocelot or whatever. He's like one of the bosses. And I just always thought the name was real cool. And so because Metal Gear was one of my favorite games, I remember I was sitting there writing a verse for Crack in the 90s. Now, that was the first record I was featured on with Conway. It was from Kings to a God, the Deluxe. And I was writing the record or whatever. I was writing my part of the record. And I was sitting there, I was like, man, you know, because this is my first time being heard by his fans. And I'm like, what can I say on here that'll make me memorable? And I put that in there. I'm young Revolver Ocelot, clapping a solid snake. My brain is sharp as surgical scalpels when I operate. At 17, all I prayed for was pussy and aqua eights. So it was like right there in that moment, I kind of made, you know, those fans aware of who I was and what I kind of stand for. And I remember the night that it dropped, that record, I went on Twitter and I was searching my name, and, you know, people was at me all night. Like, yo, who is this dude on this Conway shit rapping about Metal Gear Solid, Revolver Ocelot, Aqua Eights? Who is this dude? And so I said, yo, I got him. You know what I mean? And what I did from there was I said, okay, the response from it was so crazy. It was so dope. Let me just incorporate this into who I am. And it worked. Because, you know, after that, I dropped the Revolver Ocelot tape. I hadn't put it on streaming. We went on tour, and you can only get the tape on tour. And so I did that. And then, you know, I followed it up with the Iroquois Pliskin joint. And Iroquois Pliskin, everybody always asks, is one of Solid Snake's AKAs. So followed it up with that. And then, you know, just drove that home with like the merch. And, you know, I was dropping pins and all types of stuff, you know what I mean? And just really drove it home with like the skits on the records and things like that. And so my Metal Gear Solid is like, you know, Wes wrestling samples. You know what I mean? It's just a dope way because I have a real appreciation for it, like how Wes has a real appreciation for wrestling. So, you know, it kind of just it got me to tie something in where people can be intrigued by it just because of the look of it and how it sounds. You know what I mean? It's just another element that I just added to what I already had going on.
Absolutely, man. I'm glad you did, man, because that's definitely one of the things that caught me, you know, when I was first introduced to you.
Sure.
So, you know, again, I do want to, you know, congratulate you, man. First of all, I got another question real quick. The drum work ethic, man, like, you know, it's crazy because you don't really see people drop albums within a span of 2 weeks, right? I know you and Khan dropped, you know, Pain Provided Profit went crazy, right? The bars y'all dropped on that is enough, you know, for some people for a lifetime, you know what I mean? But then you had even more heat and you about to, you know, just take over the game, you know, with Abolished Uncertainties, man. You know, how is that as far as like from a motivational perspective, man, you know, just having a group or a collective of people, man, that's just as motivated and hungry as you are and as nice with the pen?
I think it's just really a testament to, and everybody with the movement isn't from Buffalo, but primarily we are. But it's just a testament of you know, what it is to be from Buffalo, man, and not be heard. You know what I'm saying? Like I felt like when I got my opportunity, I just wanted to be heard, man. Like people needed to hear me. People needed to hear what I've been doing for these last, you know what I'm saying, 10 plus years and really working and really, you know, grinding, sweating, blood, sweat, and tears with this shit. You know what I mean? And I think all of us, we got that same mindset. Like, I know when we're in the studio and Love the Genius is there and Conway is there, I know they trying to tear my head off every time. So it's like, shit, I'm trying to tear their head off too. You know what I mean? And same thing with Goose, same thing with SK, same thing with Shots. You know what I mean? Like, when we in the studio, it's like, man, we got to go hard because, you know, we just went so long without, you know what I mean? And it's just, that's what really drives it. And then on top of that, like, we rapping with Conway the Machine, and dude is really a machine. Like, I've been in sessions where I've sat there and watched him bang out 8 songs in a row. You know what I mean? Or we'll be in the studio from 8 at night until, you know, 7, 8 in the morning. You know what I'm saying? And then do it again the next day. So I've literally sat there and watched it, and I think that really helped my work ethic. And then also also knowing that, you know, again, I had a job for a long time. Like, now this is what I do 100%. You know what I'm saying? So just knowing that I don't really have no safety net, and I got a daughter to take care of, I got myself to take care of, you know, that just really, you know, it pushes you. You know what I'm saying? And I think everybody in the collective, we all have like a similar situation in that, whether they got kids or not. So they got to take care of themselves, they got to take care of their families. You know what I mean? And we all want more. You know what I'm saying? So that's what it is, man.
Absolutely. Father is a beautiful thing, man. You know, shout out to you, man. Girl, dad, I feel you on that one. I got 2.
For a fact. Hell yeah. I named my daughter after Nas.
Oh, that's awesome, man. Nas my number 1 all time, brother. So I definitely respect that.
Yeah.
So out of respect for your time, man, I got one more, man.
Yep.
You know, what's next for Jae Skeese, you know, and then, you know, I gotta combine it with, you know, or I'm sure, is there a tour looming, and possibly what the streets really need, a Drumwork joint project?
Yeah, so you know, me and my people, man, shout out my man Mike Potts, Think OJ. Right now we working on getting the tour together. So you know, we'll see how the album does, and I know it's gonna do amazing. So, you know, we'll put the tour together, man, and start hitting the streets, you know what I'm saying? Start hitting these different cities. I was just actually on the phone with some people yesterday, so we're real excited, man, about what we got coming in the future. I definitely, man, it's some cities that I know I want to go to, because, you know, just being on the road with Conway and just seeing the love that I got in a lot of these cities, I know it's going to be super lit. So definitely looking forward to putting the tour together. You know, obviously we got the Drumwork the album on the way, and that's going to feature everyone that's pretty much on the Drumwork roster. I'm all over the album. Love the Genius is all over the album. Shots is on there. Man, everybody's on there. We got Lil Pro on the album. It's a few dope features on there. You know what I'm saying? Like some amazing features on there, actually, now that I think about it. Great production as well. So, you know, we're looking forward to putting that out in the next month or 2. And also, I just finished a whole nother album. So, you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm looking forward to possibly dropping that this year as well. I'm trying to get on my DMX. You know what I'm saying? 2 albums in 1 year.
Man, listen, if anybody could do it, it's you, man. But y'all going crazy over there. Listen, I can't wait, you know, to hear the joint project and you know, whatever else you have going on, man. But you know, I want to thank you again, you know, for your time sitting down with me, and I want to wish you, you know, all the success on the album, you know, and in life, my brother, because, you know, it's rare, you know, to see people actually living out their dreams, man. So, you know, keep pushing.
Yeah, no doubt, bro. I appreciate you, man. Thank you for sitting down with me as well, man. It's a dope interview. You know, it's not often that you know, people actually ask you about specific things on the album. At least from my experience in being interviewed. So this was a great